For that, I want to welcome in Tsvetta Kaleynska, consulting founder and CEO of Rela Global. Tsvetta, thank you so much for joining us this Friday. Happy Friday to you. All right, we've got a survey of consumers coming out later this morning. You are often across consumer sentiment data across social media platforms. So tell us what you're noticing about recent trends when you think about we're at the beginning of a new month, you're across trends for July. What do you notice overall?
Good morning, Diane. Good to see you. Yes, as you mentioned, I analyze consumers and I analyze what they say on social media, which is actually a beautiful data set to work with because I don't have to prompt my data. My consumers actually go and share their candid thoughts and their opinions on public social media channels, and I can just go and analyze them. So actually the data pool that we're working with for mentions in the month of July from consumers about how they feel on the state of economy in the US actually is 4 million data points. So 4 million consumers went in July and talked about what they thought. Here are the highlights that I saw. US sentiment barely, Diane, barely even changed from last month or month over month. And that has been a trend that we've been seeing since the beginning of the year with all of the new policy changes that we've seen rolled out. So when I say barely changed, maybe, okay, let's give it a bit of a positive note. So there was a slight inch on the higher note, of course, of positive sentiment. However, what I did see is that trade tensions, inflation, weak economy overall, weak housing markets did divide the consumer sentiment and were actually a drag for the view of the consumer. There were, of course, you just mentioned jobs and the report that was just shared about 10 minutes ago, and that is also what I saw. Personal jobs, so again, personal debt and inflation combined were a discussion that actually the consumer brought into more than 27% of all of those discussions that I analyzed. So on that note, the job market does remain very much cautious to negative, and it is also acting as a detractor for the July sentiment.
Okay, so not surprised to see that given the jobs numbers that we just saw. When you think about what you're across, I know you're across a variety of sectors as well, travel, housing. What do you notice about how the consumer is perceiving travel right now?
Travel was actually one of the only two positive sectors where I did see a huge increase in positive sentiment. So travel and AI were those drivers. When it comes to travel, I mean, listen, it's not surprising. It is summer. People are taking vacation and they're traveling. So there is much more of that upbeat sentiment, but it's really more driven by personal stories. And again, like people actually being on the road and enjoying their summer. So I wouldn't really put so much focus on it if I had to. But when it comes to the second key driver, positive sentiment, which was AI, we actually have to point out several things. The first one was that AI was a key driver of positive sentiment across the whole industry and across the whole month of July sentiment. That was primarily driven by the fact that people and consumers are excited about the possibility of AI coming into their day-to-day and solving a lot of the really mundane tasks, if we had to think about it that way. Now, on the same note, though, we do have to point out that AI was also acted as the main detractor in that work-related discussion. So again, when it comes to personal jobs, personal finance, and wages, as consumers feared that AI is the main reason why their job is basically in jeopardy.
Well, I'd like AI to do my laundry, but not take my job seems to be the theme possibly there. But let's talk about where you saw some negative sentiment. So travel was a positive, one of two metrics that were positive. Where did you see the biggest weakness? I know you saw some weakness in housing, but where was the most significant weakness?
Besides housing, which was, again, a huge weakness driven by really buyers' fatigue and, again, consumers being upset about the high mortgage rates, the other sector where I did see negative sentiment was actually retail, which, again, if we think how that corresponds to the earnings from last quarter, I mean, is it surprising? Probably not so much. But what I really find interesting, again, I'm doing analysis month over month, so this is not just for July. I'm seeing the trends develop for the whole year. retail was a negative driver of sentiment due to the China tariffs. So we've talked about it many times. I know you cover it extensively, but what I did see is that the tariff-related inflation was basically, and price hike drivers were basically what really just upset consumers.
All right, thank you, Tsvetta Kaleynska, founder of RELA Global, with a look across consumer sentiment trends, taking a look across her data from social media.